So maybe we haven't had an opportunity to connect. Maybe you're interested in learning more about property management services. I'd like to share with you what our service entails, what the relationship looks like, and the fees associated with it. So let's pretend that you have a rental property that you own that is currently vacant. We're going to go through the cycle, covering in some detail what this looks like, what the process looks like, and hopefully this will answer many of the questions you may have about what it looks like to hire professional management. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that the house is rent ready. We have a checklist for this. It includes making sure all the appliances are operable, windows and doors fully function, and there's a whole list. We do require the property to be professionally cleaned, that if there's carpets, they be professionally cleaned, that the paint be touched up. So that's kind of a baseline, and there's some other ones in there, making sure there's no burnout light bulbs, things like that. So provided we are at a rent-ready status, we are going to take professional quality photos of the property. We're going to create an advertisement, much like you would if you were going to put the home on the market for sale. So we're going to create that content. We're going to create an advertisement. It's going to go on our website, but it's also going to syndicate out to most other major websites, including Zillow, Realtor.com, Apartments.com, Homes.com. We do advertise on the MLS. Some firms do not. A whole host of other websites you may or may not be familiar with. The point is, it will get broad exposure. It will be all over the internet, and anyone who's looking online for a home like yours is certainly going to find it. When somebody finds it and they search and they find for your house, they're likely going to be doing this online. We do get some calls because of the sign in the yard. We do get some walk-in traffic that people come into our door. People just phone us asking what available properties we have. So we do get some of those calls. When is this property available? How much is it leased for? Is there a washer and dryer included? Do you allow pets? Those are some of the most common questions we get. Once somebody has viewed the property and they're interested, or maybe they haven't even viewed the property and they're interested and have applied. Once we receive that application, in a sense, it's like getting an offer on your house. If your house was for sale, it's almost like getting an offer. So now we're going to evaluate it. So I discussed a little bit briefly our marketing efforts, kind of pre-marketing and prep. This really gets into tenant screening. This is a critical part of what we do. This is one of many reasons that people consider hiring professional property manager. We want to uncover three things. Does someone have a history of meeting their financial obligations in the past? Does someone have sufficient income to be able to make the rental payment each month? And do they have good rental history? Has somebody met their financial obligations in the house in the past? That's their credit score. We have a sliding range depending upon the rent rate of the property. It will be from 600 to 700 minimum credit score, and that depends upon what the house rents for. The income requirement, industry standard, the gold standard is 3 times what the home rents for. In our market, average rents as compared to area median income is pretty high. So we've found, and we're willing to accept candidates who have 2.5 times what the home rents for, but we always prefer 3 times. Provided somebody meets the credit score requirement, provided somebody has sufficient income and they have a good rental reference, we want to reach out to their current landlord, their previous landlord, and we want to ask a whole host of questions. It's called a rental verification. We have a form, and we're asking things like, do they make timely payments? Have they ever paid late? If they do pay late, how late have they paid? How many times have they paid late? Do they write bad checks? And a whole host of other questions. And some of these things may not be on the credit report yet. It's too recent. And certainly if there's evictions or documented complaints, those are all red flags. We get a full credit criminal background report from TransUnion. We pull them directly from TransUnion. They're very comprehensive. We can see all revolving trade accounts. We can see if there's any collections. We can see payment history. We get the whole financial picture. We do also pull criminal. Some firms do not. In most cases, what we find is it's traffic tickets and infractions. And every once in a while, it's something more interesting, and we evaluate that on a case-by-case basis. Certainly, if there's anything alarming, any violent crimes, any registered offenses, such as a sexual predator, something of that nature, we would never approve an applicant without having a conversation with you first. Maybe there's some lesser offense, a drug charge when someone was 18 and we're talking 10 years later. Is that something that we can overlook? So those are some questions we may consider if it comes up. So provided somebody neatly checks those 3 boxes, they meet the income requirement, the credit score requirement, and have clean rental history, we are going to approve that applicant. The way we structure, when you're working with Cotton Property Management, the way we structure the management agreement is such that it's with the understanding that you've hired the expert and we know what the criteria is that's needed to ensure that we can mitigate risk and approve tenants who are going to present a low risk to you. So that's exactly what we're doing. And in order to be in compliance with federal fair housing guidelines, we cannot discriminate against race, religion, national origin, handicap status, and a number of others. We have to take all that consideration, and we know those laws, and so we do make that call provided they meet the criteria. Now what? We have an approved candidate who's ready to move into the property. In most cases, we are going to sign a 1-year lease and we're going to hold a 1-month security deposit. We're going to do a move-in inspection of the property. We need to establish a baseline for what the property looked like before they moved in. If we're going to deduct from their security deposit for damages, we have to have a record for how the property looked before they moved in. So we do a move-in inspection, we have an app, we take copious amounts of pictures of the property, the floors, the walls, the appliances, the cabinets, inside and out. So we have a thorough account of what the property looked like, so we have a baseline. After move out, we'll repeat that process so we can determine if there's any damages to the property, and if there are, we can deduct those from the security deposit. Basically, the way North Carolina law is set up is such that if there are damages to the property, we can deduct those from the security deposit. But we're not allowed to deduct for normal wear and tear. There's a high traffic area, and so there's a worn spot in the carpet. We can't charge someone to replace the carpets because they walked on them. We can charge to replace carpets because wine was spilled, because the pet has messed on it, and we can't get the stains out. So that would be an example. Another example of damage might be a broken refrigerator handle or something of that nature. We will use our best judgment to determine what is damaged and what is normal wear and tear. That's part of what we do as well in administering the security deposit. Also, before move-in, we will require that all utilities are put in the tenant's name before they move in. This is a best practice so that you're not on the hook for guessing what the tenant's usage is going to be. It's just not a fair position to put the landlord in to be responsible for an unknown amount of usage for someone's water, electricity. Provided it's separately metered, that will always be our recommendation, to have the tenants put those utilities in their name. It's a best practice. Once those utilities have been put in their name, they've paid the security deposit, we've got a signed lease, and here we are at move-in. We want to set some clear expectations up front for what's going to be required, and one way we have chosen to do that is by doing a move-in orientation. We're very excited about this. It's been very successful, creating good rapport with the tenants, establishing clear-cut criteria for who's responsible for what. So we actually go out on site. So they come into our office, pick up keys. We go on site with them within the first week of their move-in, and we want to make sure that all the drains are properly working and they sign off on it. We want to instruct and show them where the breakers are in the property. We want to make sure they understand how to reset a disposal, what a GFCI outlet is and how to reset one, and some basic how-to items that can avoid some maintenance issues coming up. We're going to handle all that. We're also going to show them where the air filter is and how to change it, and make sure they understand what they're responsible for, replacing burned out light bulbs, maintaining the lawn and garden and landscaping. That's part of what we do. Once we get to move in on an ongoing basis, what we do as a property manager, other than rent collection, really boils down to 2 things. And it's managing the tenant-landlord relationship and managing maintenance. Those are the 2 big ones. So when it comes down to managing the tenant-landlord relationship, I like to say that all people are somewhere along a spectrum. Some people are going to be on one end of the spectrum. We might call it a rule follower. Maybe this is a teacher, maybe some other profession. But this is someone who is going to be very mindful of minding their P's and Q's. This is someone who might call us to ask if it's okay to hang a picture on the wall. This is someone who wouldn't dare do anything that they know isn't allowed. It's a great tenant to have. We'll get frequent calls from them, maybe a little more often than we'd like to, but we're happy to get their calls, and we're happy to take them because they're going to be a great tenant. They can stay as long as they want. On the other end of the spectrum, we might have somebody who's a renegade. Not necessarily that they're a bad person, but they just don't really think about the home the way we would like them to. They might do something like painting a room. They might sublease a bedroom. That's not something we would encourage them to do. While I hesitate to say that we've seen it all, we've seen a lot. And so we're prepared to handle a variety of situations that come up that may or may not come up during the course of a lease. But that's part of the value that we bring, is that we've dealt with this before, we've seen it before, it's not our first rodeo. So you get the benefit of us understanding how to handle those situations. The other part of what we do is managing maintenance. This is a big part of what we do. This consumes a lot of our time and resources, and we take it very seriously, because if done well, the relationship between the property manager and the homeowner goes swimmingly. If we botch this up, there's going to be constant friction. This is where your costs are incurred. I mean, you expect the rent, you expect the management fee, but how much is the maintenance going to cost? Obviously, that is a case-by-case basis and may depend upon the integrity of the home, when it was constructed, and a variety of other factors. The way we have it set up in our management agreement is that minor expenses will be handled by management as they occur. Currently, the threshold is $350 for those repairs. This is both our authority level, where we can act on your behalf to take care of needed, necessary, ongoing maintenance concerns to maintain habitability, to maintain compliance with tenant-landlord laws, and to maintain a property that will continue to be marketable in the future. So we have a sister company that handles some of the handyman and basic repairs that we do employ. However, most of the work is subcontracted out to individual contractors. Many of these are licensed trades, HVAC, plumbing, electricians, but we do have other handymen. We have contractors, we have landscapers, painters, cleaners, roofers, all the trades, you name it. We have contacts. We have good relationships with all these folks. These are people that we work with on a regular basis, that we drive volume business. They provide an excellent service at a reasonable cost. And so you get the benefit of tapping into our pool of vetted contractors to be handling all the maintenance at your rental property. When people hire us, we understand they're hiring a professional, and that we are there to take the burden off of their shoulders. And when you're hiring us, it's because you don't want to get a phone call in the middle of the night, or after hours, or during the middle of your day when there's a maintenance issue, because there's a toilet that's running, or a faucet that's leaking, or the air conditioning has gone out. Part of the reason we believe that you have hired us is to handle those items. When it comes to more major repairs, a good example I like to use is for the HVAC or the air conditioning unit. So say, for instance, it's the middle of the summer and it gets hot in Wilmington. The house isn't cooling properly. It's 80 degrees in the house. The tenant's screaming at us. We dispatch the technician. He goes out there, and this is what he finds. He reports to us that there's a leaking coil and that the unit's 12 years old. We get some information, we get some numbers, and we present that to you. What we find is that it's going to cost somewhere around $2,000 to replace the leaky coil, and it may be $6,000 to replace the unit. We're going to come to you with that information. Maybe we want to get a second quote. Perfectly acceptable. We'd be glad to get a second quote. Maybe your position is that you say, it's really not a good time for me to spend $6,000. Honestly, I really don't want to spend $2,000, but I can spend $2,000. So let's make a repair. Let's replace the coil, and let's move on. Hope we get a good few more years out of this unit. Or maybe you say, how old is it? It's 12 years old. I'm not about to spend $2,000 on this unit only to have something break down next year. Let's replace it. Let's replace it. Let's spend the $6,000, let's bite the bullet, and let's get it done. We're not here to advocate either position. What we want is to ensure that there is a quick resolve to the problem, that we resolve it in a reasonable amount of time. So that's our primary concern in this. So that's a little bit about the maintenance part of it, and that's where we tend to have a lot of ongoing dialogue. We do have two different plans that we offer. There's a 10% plan and there's a 12% plan. With either one, there is a one-time administrative fee, and on the 10% plan, our fee is going to be 10% of the rent with a minimum, and then there will be some other additional fees. We do charge for the 6-month inspections. If on the 10% plan, we do charge a fee for lease renewals. And we also include an override on maintenance charges that we oversee. So there's a markup to the receipt that we receive from the vendor who actually performed the work. So the other plan is a 12% plan, and the fee is 12% of the monthly rent, nothing more, nothing less, and it's simple. You can predict it, it's reliable, you can count on it, and you can budget for it. If you have any questions about our service, if you want to learn more, if you'd like to have a conversation, if you'd like to set up a phone call, if you'd like for us to come out and view the property, we'd be glad to. Please reach out to myself or one of our staff. We'd be glad to work with you and see how we can be of assistance.